Lexington Symphony really wants to bring fantastic classical music to the general public. Part of our mission is to really take music into the schools and to bring kids to hear live music.
Orchestrating kids through the classics. One of the things that I love about this orchestra is that we have very intelligent group of people who are naturally educators within the orchestra.
Many of us are musicians who've done educational programming, and one of the things that occurred to our group was, well, what if we did the history of classical music through time?
So we have this team from the orchestra, and we sat and tried to identify as a group together what are the high points in orchestral history that show the change in the color of the orchestra, illustrated by the instruments added to the orchestra. And we ended up with this 1,500-year compendium from a monk wandering in the dark monastery singing plain song to John Williams launching us into outer space with Darth Vader. And I think we've got a really good product.
We felt it was very important before bringing the kids to Cary Hall, to the big concert, to go into the schools and prepare them for the visit. And one of the wonderful things about that is when the kids arrive at Cary Hall, they're waving, "Hey Liz, hey Bill," because they've seen us in their classroom, and it really, makes a great contact between the players and the kids.
We have to find a way of putting the orchestra immediately in a context that everybody, whether you've ever been to a concert or not, relates to. These kids are a blank slate. If you mention orchestra, they're going to say, "I don't know anything to do with an orchestra. Orchestra is boring," whether they know anything about an orchestra or not. So we have to find that point of contact, and then we have to somehow excite them on the history of the orchestra so that it's fun.
We make a real connection with the kids, and they get excited to come to the big concert. That first day, it was like a kid in a candy store. I was so excited. And Cary Hall was full of all these third graders, and it's just one of the highlights for me of the season is orchestrating kids.
The unsaid message for me is about creativity. The fact that a child can look at sounds that they take for granted. And when you see a movie and you hear an orchestra, they take that for granted. It increases the impact of a movie, but nobody says, well, that's because there was this scary moment that came from the brass and the orchestra. This sensitizes them to something that is invisible. And it also brings back, with a soloist like Yuki Beppo, our young violin soloist, this is something they can do. They can learn an instrument. They can play with other people, which is a social framework, which is important. As a group, you can achieve something that you could not do by yourself. These are all subliminal messages that are mixed into the whole thing. And that it elevates an experience. It can take you someplace that you couldn't go to by yourself. When you hear a piece of music, it immediately puts you in a place, in a time, in a mood. Sometimes people say, I can remember what I had for dinner when I heard that piece for the first time. Music is so basic to our lives, and yet I think in the last few decades we've tried to separate it from our human experience as being an expendable add-on. In fact, it is basic. And when we bring it back into, oh yeah, how quiet would life be without music? How much music adds to my life in the emotional aspect of it. All of these things are all connected through this program that we've done. Color, people, collective experience, and painting a picture in music that Star Wars, John Williams, boy, you play the opening theme and immediately people think stars, moon, we're out there.
I've had so many adults tell me who have seen the program, this reminds me when I went in my 4th grade to see the symphony. That's what started my love of classical music. And so, of course, we hope that these kids, many of these kids, will have been introduced to classical music where they otherwise wouldn't have been, and have an appreciation for it.
One thing I think is important about the orchestral and the musical experience is that it's a family event. It's something just like going to Disney on Ice. It's something you can share together.
The other aspect of it is that, and one thing that I think they get out of seeing us do it, is when they see an adult in whatever that adult's field having so much fun doing what it is they're doing. In my case, it's playing clarinet or playing in an orchestra, but it could be somebody, being a carpenter or something like that. When they see somebody enjoying it so much, they realize that if we can get them started, they'll have a lifelong love for what we as musicians do, but hopefully what they can bring to it in their own voice.
You measure a nonprofit organization not in how many dollars you have at the end of the day after you've paid for expenses and sold things. You measure the success of a nonprofit by how many people are attracted to what you do and want to be part of it.